So Nagelsmann, where does he go next? I saw a tweet from an excellent up and coming journalist. Oh yes, Seb Stafford Bloor it was. He tweeted, in this situation, it'd be interesting to know which club performs the biggest overreach for Nagelsmann, as in who makes the call to offer him a job, but just gets sent reflexively. Just gets sent reflexively. I've never said the word reflexively before. To voicemail.
It's interesting that you're reflecting on the fact that you've never said it before, making it really quite
reflective.
Circular.
Indeed. Yes. So obviously most people replied to Seb's tweet by thinking about Spurs. But, Nagelsmann, what happens next? Because when you have a situation and an experience like this, it throws up all the questions, doesn't it?
Like what?
Like where next? That is maybe the question.
For Nagelsmann.
What happens to him now?
I'd imagine he goes again. He goes again and gets a new job somewhere else later.
He's got to go and prove himself, hasn't he, somewhere else?
I don't think he has to prove anything. No,
I don't think
he has to prove
doesn't have to prove anything?
High-level tactical manager.
No, nothing to
Amazing.
prove.
You think he might... the biggest job in Germany is Bayern Munich. That was his dream job. So now that is...
Obviously, he might just retire.
He could do. Was he 35? He could have a bit of fun. Yeah.
So he could retire from management at the same age most players retire from
Certainly the amount of payout that he's got from these...
he's got a bit of cash to play with, yeah.
He's probably going to be all right in the long run, I would suspect.
He could go and just play like Call of Duty for the next month and have a great time. Okay. I wouldn't actually. The new one's not very good. Anyway, so he'll end up somewhere else. Likely, like Tottenham want to get him. Like that's the thought is that they like Nagelsmann because he's young, determined. He has youthful exuberance and energy and has great ideas and can manage people. Like he's a really valuable manager in waiting. But would he want to go from the biggest job, one of the biggest jobs in world football, of Bayern Munich, where you should and are expected to win everything you compete for? Champions League accepted, you don't expect to win that, but they want them to be very high along. Whereas Spurs, you could argue, under Conte, there's a glass ceiling of fourth place, where you can't really get above that unless you do something special and other teams drop their level. And then the time they broke through that fourth place ceiling, when Pochettino was in charge, Spurs didn't have Klopp's Liverpool at full pace. They didn't have Guardiola's Man City at full pace. Man United had sort of disappeared. They came up and down again with Mourinho and OGS during that time. But now at Spurs, what is success for Spurs? Probably top four. Getting above that is very difficult because then you have to compete at the level of Man City, and Guardiola's not going anywhere. Arsenal are now there. They took the hit for a couple of years and it's really worked. And now they are comfortably one of the best three teams, the best team in the league this year, aren't they? Klopp's Liverpool will be back. No doubts about that whatsoever. They're just not here now. This is the time there's a window to finish third. And then you've got Man United around there. Chelsea will be back at some point. Newcastle will have loads of investment and will be competing up there. And then there's always teams randomly who perform better than you want to. So if you're Spurs, you've got to really overperform. And they've done that for many years because Kane and Son have overperformed for many, many years. That's a big reason. And I think I was talking to Jack Pitbrook, maybe Charlie Eccleshare I was talking to last week. And you think about, when you have Harry Kane, who's overperforming as much as he does, just a great player. So great players always overperform. But you have that player, you kind of can't finish below 6th or 7th because his goals alone will get you to that level. Then you add in Son Heung-min and then some good players around it and you're already going to have a bit of fun. And then when you have, what Pochettino finished third, then second and third, and these years he had was Leicester won the league. That was a weird year. Then you had Conte's Chelsea won the league, which they were, they just transformed halfway through the season and were amazing when they lost to Arsenal or whatever, and halftime he changed to that system, which has then become his system. And then after that you've got Klopp and Man City, just both of those just taking the league away. So if Nagelsmann goes in there, he could do his really fun tactical changes. It would take time, lots of time to make that work. Does it work in the Premier League is one thing, because it's not like you can try it at Bayern when you are expected to win every single game because you're probably going to win anyway. But if you try and do that at Premier League and then after 3 games it's not working, then what do? You persist with it because it damages your reputation?
What you first said.
What's that?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, what do you do though? It's hard.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, I'm interested in how much of an impact Arsenal's trajectory is going to have on how other teams approach the Premier League in future, because we talked about this before we were recording, but you said, what have Spurs got to do to compete? Well, they've got to compete against Man City, but also Arsenal are up there as well. But last season, Arsenal weren't up there. What they've done is they brought in a coach who's implemented good ideas, and they've been able to slowly build a better squad, and now they've been challenging for the Premier League title. So I wonder whether or not Spurs will be looking at that and thinking, this is a manager who could do the same sort of thing. It's an exciting young manager with ideas that clearly are going to bear fruition at some point. Why not get Julian Nagelsmann in to be our Mikel Arteta? Because I think we talked last week on the podcast about how Pochettino took Spurs from being like a mid-table side to being a top four challenging side. And then they achieved that, and then promptly stopped spending money on their squad, and then thought when things went bad, they were like, well, we thought we'd broken the system a little bit with Pochettino, but what we need now is an elite coach. So they brought in their Antonio Conte, and they brought in their Jose Mourinho, and obviously that didn't work. So I wonder whether or not Nagelsmann is a quite nice straddler of those two things, right? A young up and coming coach with great ideas, but also a coach who has got elite experience as well, and is viewed as being an elite coach in that sense. So it could be quite nice for Spurs if they can get him. But I think the problem is if they can get him, right? Because there's plenty of other clubs around who will probably be wanting to get his signature as well. Namely, Real Madrid is the name that's been talked about a lot. So there's going to be a weird situation, right, where we're going to get to the summer and potentially Madrid could be without a manager, as we'll talk about in a bit. But also, people are talking about Chelsea, and Chelsea are saying that they're going to stick with Potter
forever.
But
that's what I said a few weeks ago.
There's the possibility that they see Nagelsmann on the market and think, if we're going to move him on, as we've said with Nagelsmann being moved on for Tuchel, the same thing could happen here. So I think that what Nagelsmann's going to do is he's going to wait until the summer, chill out a little bit.
How's he going to do that?
Probably hang out. Probably go. I don't know. He'll probably take a break, and then he'll probably go and view some training sessions for big coaches around Europe.
That's what you do, isn't it? You just say, can I just come and have a look at your training sessions, Carlo?
But then, he'll be sat in the summer and be like, right, let's just wait for the offers to come in and see what I'm presented with. The ball is definitely in his court, I think, when it comes to, there's another idiom for you. But, I think they should just, he'll just be pretty happy with the way things are, really. I mean, he won't be happy that he's been fired, but I think he'll feel quite confident that he will be able to take his pick of jobs in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So if you then go into somewhere like Spurs and it doesn't work, that really damages your chance in the future to get a job at Real Madrid, because even though the higher ups will think that he's clearly still a good choice, it doesn't look good with fans if you think he's failed terribly somewhere.
That's why the job is you don't want to take a job that's a risk, do you? That's the thing. You need to take a job where you are going to look good.
Well, it's really hard. I mean, when Pochettino went into Spurs, keep talking about Pochettino, but when he went in, it's mid-table.
You don't like him, do you? Was that?
No, it's not that. It's just, I think
come up last.
I think there's a lot of complications around it. Like, I think things went very well for him, but he also did very well with what he had.
I know you defended yourself.
But when he came in, I mean, they finished 5th and 6th. Then he joined them, so that's where they were, and
they were already fine. Really,
they'd come out in the back of the whole history of that. I think is interesting. Where because Spurs are in a new era of being a massive club. Like, they are a huge club now.
I feel like we should say Antonio Conte has been sacked by Spurs.
Oh yeah,
today, which is sort of why we're talking about them.
Yeah.
Which is fine. We were going to get there anyway. Yeah. I mean, there is also this idea that Harry Kane might leave in the summer as well. You'd then go into that club without Harry Kane.
And then maybe it's the thing, because if I go right back to Spurs before Pochettino, I mean, you went from Harry Redknapp was in charge. So they won the League Cup in 2008. It was the last trophy they won. That's the last thing they won. And Conte's rant was about there being a lack of a winning culture over the last 20 years, right? Sure enough. So what you have is they won the League Cup with Juan de Ramos. No one liked the football. It wasn't great.
Ramos.
Yeah, there you go. And then after
that, it's so funny, isn't it? Teams always win with random managers like Chelsea. Chelsea, they bang on about trophies, but then it's like Roberto Di Matteo won the Champions League, and then everyone's just like, Chelsea won the Champions League. Don't ask who.
Keep going around. Champions League manager, winning manager.
Exactly.
Juan de Ramos.
But then Harry Redknapp had this little player called Gareth Bale who came through and became one of the absolute best in the world. Overperformed his XG incredibly. He was absolutely
signed as a fullback.
As a fullback, played as a fullback for a lot. Yeah. Then a winger, then became a central attacking forward. Basically,
they didn't win with him in the team. No. He was the fault. He was the problem.
Well, he shot them right up. He was amazing. Bale. He carried them, and Modric was there as well. Remember, so you had these two amazing players there. at the time.
Didn't have the winning mentality though until he went to Real Madrid, and then he got the winning mentality. So
it all started with sacking Juan de Ramos.
Well, and then Redknapp to AVB,
and then Sherwood,
for a bit, and then you end up with Pochettino who comes in, and then that's when at the same time he comes in, Harry Kane comes through, and obviously Pochettino helped him develop. So it's a bit of
so did Norwich.
Yes, absolutely. But Kane, Kane was going to go in that strategy anyway. You can't be that good unless you were already on that plane on the way up. So then they get really good. But because of that era where Pochettino had things going his way, where he didn't have massive Klopp and Guardiola teams to play against, there was a space to take up, which he did very well, but couldn't quite get over the line. Not his fault. They didn't invest in certain windows. 2 of the 3 windows before he left, and they didn't get any players in. Then when he left the squad a bit imbalanced. But that Champions League peak was the result of lots of work to get to the final over time. And then because teams naturally need to be refreshed and recycled, that was probably the end of the cycle. And so then they've come at the back of that. They're now a big new team, a big stadium, huge, amazing training ground. But they've got Kane and Son now, who are probably just at the peak of their careers, or just maybe about to dip over it. Maybe Kane will get 3 more years out of him properly. Maybe he'll be fine, actually. He drops deep. But you know what I mean? That sort of thing. But if you go in, you don't have the same things in place. But yet maybe they'll just randomly turn up because they do in football.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.